All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the financial aid information session. My name is Brittany Boss, and I am the Master's Admissions and Financial Aid Associate here at the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. I know that we talked a little bit about financial aid in previous information sessions, but I just want to dig a little bit deeper and give you guys some more information about that today. Before I begin, I just want to say thank you for being here and for joining us today. We're just super happy to be connecting with all of you and preparing for your studies here at Boston University. I also want to note before we begin that I'm sure many of you guys have questions regarding financial aid. So please feel free to submit those questions in the chat box, and I will make sure to address those as we go throughout the presentation. I also will leave some time at the end of the presentation for any lingering questions that you guys have. And then at that time, you can also unmute yourself if you feel more comfortable doing that. And then if at any time you have trouble seeing the presentation or hearing me, please let me know as well, and we can troubleshoot. All right. So this first slide talks about the different types of federal loans and federal graduate financial aid that we have, the main source being two different federal loans. So the first is the Federal Direct Unsubsidized Stafford Loan. We recommend this loan to students first as it has a little bit of a lower interest rate than some of the other loans. It does have an annual maximum of $20,500, and that includes fall, spring, and summer sessions if you plan on taking summer courses. So, as I said, it does have a lower interest rate than the Federal Direct Plus loan, and that is the second loan that we typically recommend to our students. The Plus loan is a credit-based loan, so students do go through a credit check. And then once they're approved, they can borrow up to the remainder of their cost of attendance for the program. So this loan does have a little bit of a higher interest rate than the Federal Direct Unsubsidized loan, but we find that it does have a little bit of a lower interest rate than some of the private loan options. Typically, students will use a combination of both of these loans to fund their education for the academic year. Repayment of these two loans might be familiar to you from undergraduate studies. Repayment doesn't begin until 6 months after you drop below 6 credits of registration. So typically 6 months after graduating from the program is when students will begin to repay their loans. And of course, you may begin making repayments before then, but that is when it will really kick in and you'll have to start making payments. And the standard repayment plan for these federal loans is 10 years. We will also be speaking to the last few bullet points in this presentation or on this slide later on in the presentation in regards to private loans and different scholarship opportunities. So in terms of how much you can borrow in loan funding, there are two main numbers for this. There's the cost of attendance, which is one number, and then there's total aid, which is the second number. So the total aid consists of any merit scholarships, external scholarships, private loans, and service-free stipends that you may be receiving for your program. So that's all one number. And then the other number is the cost of attendance. And that includes tuition and fees, room and board, and a handful of other expenses that we'll discuss in the next slide. So we essentially take your cost of attendance and we subtract the total aid that you're receiving to find the number that you would be eligible to borrow in loans. So just as an easy example, if the cost of attendance was $80,000 and you are receiving $20,000 in total aid, then you would be eligible to borrow up to $60,000 in loan funding for your program. So this slide here outlines the cost of attendance for the 2021-2022 academic year. So that's for the 9-month academic year. Your top 3 numbers on this slide are billable expenses, and those are the numbers that will appear on your student account. So that includes tuition, fees for student services, and health and wellness, which are both resources on campus that you'll have access to for the entirety of the year, and medical insurance. I do want to note that the medical insurance rates haven't yet been updated for this new academic year, but hopefully we'll have those numbers soon. And students can choose to waive the medical insurance if you're still covered under your parents' or spouse's insurance. That is something that can be done on the student link. And once it's waived, this number would not be factored into your cost of attendance, and that would not appear on your student account. And then the numbers listed under the living expenses are not actually billed to your student account, but we do take them into consideration as expenses that you'll have outside of the cost of academic expenses. So that includes stuff like room and board, transportation costs for commuting, books, and different supplies. And I do want to note that these are the average costs, and many students find that they might not spend that amount of money, but it depends on lifestyle choices. So this is the ballpark number that we give based on our research. And that number is given to students to give them space to borrow for loans for those expenses, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be spending that exact amount on your living expenses throughout the academic year. And so then the bottom number, the very bottom number, shows that the total cost of attendance, which is the number that we use to determine the amount that can be borrowed in loan funding. So for this current academic year, it will be $82,411 for the cost of attendance. In terms of determining eligibility for the federal loans, there are a number of criteria to consider. You do have to be a US citizen, a permanent resident, or an eligible non-citizen. You must be enrolled in a degree program at least half-time, and the credits must count towards your academic program. You must be registered with the Selective Service if that applies to you. You cannot owe a refund on any federal grants or be in default on any previous educational loans that you borrowed. You must be making satisfactory academic progress towards your degree, and you cannot exceed the maximum borrowing limit for the federal direct loan. And then the final one is that you must meet the credit criteria for the Federal Plus loan. So I know that's a lot of information there. If you have any questions about this criteria, please let us know. In terms of the federal loan maximums that I briefly mentioned in the past slide, you can borrow up to $20,500 per year with the federal direct unsubsidized loan, and that includes fall, spring, and summer. The aggregate loan limit for graduate students is $138,500, which includes graduate and undergraduate borrowing. So if you're curious about your previous loan borrowing record from either previous graduate degrees or from your undergrad, and you're wondering if you're close to that aggregate limit, then you can access your record online at nslds.edu.gov, and that website is listed here on this slide. For the Federal Plus loan, we just look at your cost of attendance and total aid. So there's not necessarily a limit that you can borrow from the Plus loan other than up to your cost of attendance. So students will typically use this loan to cover the gap of what is not covered by the federal direct unsubsidized loan. And then I do also want to note that whatever loans you request disperse into 2 equal installments at the beginning of each semester. So if you requested $20,000 in loan funding, then it will disperse $10,000 in the fall for the fall semester, and then $10,000 in the spring for the spring semester. It does not disperse the whole $20,000 at the beginning of the academic year. It's always split into the 2 semesters. And that applies for both the federal direct unsubsidized loan and the federal plus loan. If you do have a valid credit balance on your student account, once the loans disperse and are put towards your tuition and fees, then you may request a refund for that amount, and then you can use that amount of money for housing and living expenses that were outlined in the previous slide. So to request a refund, the first day that you'd be able to do so is the first day of classes. And you do this on the student link. Once you do that, the funds will be directly deposited into your US bank account. And then that money is yours to use for living expenses. And just as a side note to that, you will need to set up direct deposit on your student link as well, so that the funds are directly deposited into your bank account. Now we will be going through the steps that students take to apply for loans. There are essentially 3 steps that seem overwhelming at first, but they're really pretty easy. The first step is to file the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. You would have to submit a new FAFSA each year that you apply for loans. So if you apply for loans this academic year and you continue your schooling the next academic year into a second year, then you will need to submit a new FAFSA for your second academic year here. If you go to the fafsa.edu.gov website, you can begin this process by using Boston University school code that is listed here on this website. It is 002130. And so by using that code, then your FAFSA will get sent to us directly and we'll have access to view it. And just as a side note for filling out the FAFSA as well, the IRS data retrieval tool is really helpful for both our office and for our students, because it shortens the process and it directly imports a lot of information that you might not know off the top of your head. So it does make the process a little bit easier for you. If you have any questions about this process, or if you do run into any troubles, then we have our phone number and our email listed here on this website that you can contact, and we will assist you in whatever way we can. And then after submitting the FAFSA, the next step is to submit our loan request forms. So similar to the FAFSA, this does have to be completed every academic year that you want to apply for loans. We have 2 separate forms. There's one for the federal direct unsubsidized loan, and then there's a separate form for the federal plus loan. The federal plus loan application is shown here on this slide. The federal direct unsubsidized loan will be available to complete online. I know that they're currently in the process of getting the new rates for the new academic year. So once that form is available, then we will send it to all of you guys in case you are curious or in case you want to complete that loan form. And then the Direct Plus loan is still on PDF format. So once you fill that form out, then you can email it to us directly at grsaid@bu.edu. And then we will begin processing it on our end immediately. The third step is to complete the master promissory note and entrance counseling. You probably had to do these if you borrowed loans in your undergraduate studies, but as a new graduate student, you will have to complete these again. These can be done on the Federal Student Aid website at the link listed on this slide. And you do have to be sure to select the Graduate Professional Students tab so that you don't recomplete the undergraduate forms. And then you'll need to complete both the master promissory note for both the federal direct unsubsidized loan and the PLUS loan if you plan on borrowing both loans. You only need to complete one entrance counseling as that applies to both loans. But for the master promissory note, you do have to complete two separate forms. So to wrap up, once you complete all of these steps, our financial aid team will begin processing your loan requests, and the funds will be applied to your student account around the billing period, which will be after you enroll for classes. So again, you can't request a refund for the credit on your account until the first day of classes, but you will be able to see your account on your student link. So you'll be able to see your cost of attendance and your applied loans on your student account. In terms of private loans, BU has done some cross-referencing with different private lenders to look at some of the competitive prices. So you aren't required to borrow from one of these lenders, but the prices may be competitive compared to some other options. We also recommend that you compare credit-based loans, as you can only choose one credit-based loan per year. So we encourage you to find one that's the best fit for you. So as an example, you won't be able to borrow both the federal PLUS loan and an additional credit-based loan, as you can only borrow one credit-based loan per year. We also have a couple of resources at the bottom of this slide that are helpful in calculating repayment plans over the course of 10 to 15 years. And keep in mind that once you graduate with a master's degree, you will be making more money with your degree compared to with your undergraduate degree. So you can definitely factor that into these calculators when you're looking into different repayment plans, as that will definitely be a factor. We also want to list a couple of outside scholarships that students have found helpful in the past. So these links are to scholarship search websites, and many offer scholarships depending on where you live geographically, what program you're studying. It depends on your gender, ethnic background. There's a whole lot of different categories to search through on these websites. There are a lot of opportunities available, but it does require some digging on your end to research the websites and find scholarships that may be applicable to you. So definitely feel free to take a look at all of the resources we have listed here and try to figure out what the best package for you to put together for your graduate program is. Here are some important dates. So September 2 is the first day of classes, which is the first day that you'll be able to request a refund for any credit that's on your student account. And then September 16, I believe, will be the payment deadline for our incoming students. So it'll give you a few weeks after classes begin to kind of get settled and get your finances in order for the program. We also have a number of other helpful resources, which I know some of you may already be looking at right now. Housing, which will factor into your cost of attendance. So we have listed here a link to off-campus services as well as on-campus services, which will allow you to link up with some other students that are looking for housing, and they have reasonable prices as well. I know some other websites that are helpful with housing is websites like Zillow and Trulia and even Facebook. From our experience, we know that Boston is a great city, but real estate isn't the cheapest here compared to some other places. So that being said, keep in mind that there are housing options that really range in price. And so we encourage you to find something that fits within your budget. Personally, I live in a nice, spacious house in Somerville with 3 other roommates for a fraction of the price that a luxury studio apartment right downtown would cost. So there are definitely a lot of options, and that's just something to be aware of as you begin your housing search. If you have any questions about safety or accessibility or different housing options in specific parts of town, don't hesitate to reach out to ask us, because our office does have a number of staff members that live all over in different parts of Boston. And so we would be happy to speak to our experiences. We also have different sources of entertainment. The BU Arts Initiative helps students find venues around the city that are affordable or free. And our students also get free admission to the Museum of Fine Arts. The BU FitRec is the gym facility that's on campus, and our full-time students have a membership automatically as part of the tuition and fees. So you will have full access to the whole gym, which is pretty great. There's a lot of great resources and workout classes at the FitRec, and they also offer wellness classes if you're looking to de-stress and relax a bit. I know that they have some different yoga courses and different, just different classes and events to help you relax a little bit as a student. There's also a very cool rock wall that you can sign up for. There's an Olympic-sized pool. There is an indoor track. So there really are a lot of resources there. We also have a link to a budget worksheet here that you can take a look at, and it might help you to look at the bigger picture financially for the time that you spend here for your schooling. We also have a link to our graduate education resources website, which is for all of the resources across Boston University. There's a lot of really helpful resources for not only enrollment in housing, but for all fields across BU. So it might be a good website just to poke around at and get used to the resources that we offer here. And then the last link on this website is for gradsense.org. And that's just another really helpful website when considering loans. It gives you a lot of different information, and it really helps to answer a lot of questions that you may have in regards to financially planning for your education. So that does conclude our presentation. And now I want to turn it over to you guys for any questions that you might have. I do see some questions in the chat box, and so I will start taking a look at those here.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to pop in and say hello. I'm Joanne Thomas, and I'm Director of Admissions for all the master's programs in GRS. So I just wanted to say, congratulations to you. We had a record number of applications this year. So your admission to your program of choice is quite an accomplishment already. And I know you're all, figuring this out with financial aid. It's an important piece, of course, of your plan for your future. But as Brittany pointed out before, we've all been there in figuring out, how to cover the investment of our master's program, and you'll work it out. You're going to graduate in a year or 2 years, depending on your program, and you're going to have a graduate degree from Boston University. So as you know, this is why you've applied in the first place. This is to have a better life for yourself, follow your dream, whatever your ultimate goals are. So it's an investment. And, while you are in school, many of our students, Brittany mentioned this, but many of our students work part-time jobs to help out with covering their living expenses. You'll be in Boston to go to school. So, don't spend all of your money on a fancy apartment downtown. You're going to be studying all the time, working hard all of the time. So, you can find a lot of nice places to live. It's really easy to get around. If you're not in the city yet, I moved to Boston 4 years ago. So before you get to Boston, you kind of look and think, things look further apart than they are, but you can really like travel everywhere to all these little areas that are outside. So if you ever have any questions about those areas that you're looking to live, what things will cost, that sort of thing, please give any of us a call, send us an email. We're happy to chat with you about that. Yeah, and I will say, you look at your repayment, look at the calculator, and estimate the good salary that you'll be making at that time. And then, with your other living expenses that typically when you're first out of graduate school, you don't have, a number of children and a family and a mortgage and things like that. So, it's pretty realistic. These federal loans were made with these low interest rates, and things it looks like they will even get better on that end with our new administration at the helm in the US. So all good stuff, but yeah, I just wanted to say congratulations, and we'll answer your questions as best we can here, and please feel free to follow up and set up an individual appointment if there are, sometimes there are personal things that you want to discuss with financial aid. So Brittany has time, you can set up on her Calendly, set up an appointment, and she'll go over everything with you. So thanks. Turn it over to you all.
Thank you. I will quick send a link here to the website where you can schedule a meeting with me. Yeah, we know that financial matters can sometimes be a little bit more personal. So if you feel more comfortable just asking your questions one-on-one, then this would definitely be the website to contact us at. Okay, so there's a lot of really great questions. There was one question asking about their scholarship. They are supported by their government with a scholarship, and that will be sent to BU. How can you reach and use the funding for living expenses? Will there be an account created for me to reach that funding? So how that works with scholarships and loan funding is it will be directly dispersed into your student account. So on the first day of classes, that's when you'll be able to request a refund from the credit that's on your account, and that money would then be dispersed into your personal bank account to use for living expenses. I will send you the link to our website with instructions on how to request a refund. But that is the process for getting the extra money that's in your student account into your personal bank account. Okay, the next question is asking, do you need to apply for both the FAFSA and a CSS profile? If you needed to make a change in your FAFSA, who would you contact? Yes, great questions. So as a graduate student, you will now automatically be considered independent. So you will not have to complete a CSS profile. We don't need any of your parental information. So you will need to submit just the FAFSA. And then who would you contact? I believe that you would contact FAFSA directly. You should be able to log back into your FAFSA account and make that change. But let me send a link on more instructions on how to actually make a change. But because they are external from us, we are not able to go in and make that change for you on our end. So here's some more information in the link that I sent. It looks like you will be able to just log into your account, press on your FAFSA page, select Make FAFSA Corrections, create and save, and then change your information and submit your new information. So you should be able to do it directly on the FAFSA website. There's a question asking when the loan request forms will become available and when is the deadline for submitting them. They should be available typically early July. We're hoping to get them a little bit sooner this year, but technically the new interest rates are not available until July 1st. So once we have the loan forms, then we'll make sure to send everyone an email with those loan forms just so that you can have them on hand. So hopefully by early July, if not before. And then there is technically no hard deadline for submitting the forms. We typically say about 3 weeks or so before the payment deadline. So at least 3 weeks before September 16. And that's just to give us enough time to process the loans and make sure that they're applied to your student account before the payment deadline, just to make sure that you don't incur a late payment fee. So technically there's no hard deadline, as you can still apply for loans throughout the semester as well, but just to avoid any late fee, we really recommend to get them in as soon as possible once they're available, but typically about 3 weeks before the payment deadline. There is a question asking what they're looking for in the PLUS credit review. That is a good question, and I'm honestly not entirely sure. We have not had any issues with our students not being approved for a PLUS loan. I did just look up on their website. It just says that you must not have an adverse credit history. If you have an adverse credit history, you may still be available to receive a PLUS loan if you meet additional requirements. So I know it's kind of vague a little bit. I will send this link in the chat box, as it does just have a little bit more information about the PLUS loan requirements. If you press the drop down menu where adverse credit history is hyperlinked, then that has more information about what an adverse credit history actually is. So hopefully that's helpful. There's a question asking how to apply for the scholarships that require nominations. So yes, there are a handful of scholarships that require nominations from faculty members, and those are typically given after the first semester. There's really no way to apply for those. The faculty members will put down your name and they will suggest you as an applicant for that scholarship. So there's really nothing that's needed from you to be considered for the scholarships that require nominations. There is a question asking how you can get a loan to help secure our visa. Yes, I didn't talk too much about loans for international students, so let me send a link about those. So there are a few different options. A lot of our international students will look into getting scholarships from their home country. I know that's not always an option for every country, but a lot of our students will look into that as an option. In the link that I sent, it also mentions borrowing from a US loan lender with an eligible US citizen as a co-signer. So that's also a great option. This website has some different links to find a loan that allows you to do so. All of those loans would be private. They wouldn't be through Boston University and they wouldn't be through the government. But this website does have some helpful links to find a loan where you can sign with a US co-signer. And then a lot of our students also find that they're able to borrow loans from Empower Financing. So I will send that as a link as well. So this is a great loan option for international students, and you don't need a cosigner for the Empower Financing loan. So that's definitely an option to look into as well. Oops, sorry, I sent it to someone directly. I'll resend that to everyone. Yeah, so those are really the three main loan options for international students. And then, as Joanne briefly mentioned as well, a lot of our students will choose to work part-time jobs on campus to help fund their living expenses, their rent and their food, and some money to do fun things while you're here as well. So a lot of our students will find on-campus jobs, and those will be available once you register for your classes. You'll be able to look at the job board on the student link to find something. There is a question saying that you're an international student and you already applied for some loan lenders. They are asking for your I-20 form before proceeding with the process. Is there any date for the I-20 to be sent? I know that our ISSO is working on processing all of the I-20s right now. So hopefully you'll be receiving that soon. I will, if you want to send me an email, I'll send my personal email. Then I can try to look up where your I-20 is in the process and hopefully get a better idea of when you can expect to receive your I-20 document. So then you can proceed with the loan process. That can be tricky sometimes because our ISSO does need a minimum amount of financial document proof. So our international students will need to submit a document or multiple documents that show at least $82,448 of financial funding. And so we won't be able to create the I-20 form without that financial documentation. So sometimes there can be a little bit of a loop there, but hopefully we'll be able to figure that out. Are there any work opportunities or scholarships for foreign students? Yep, there's definitely plenty of work opportunities here on campus. Those will be available once you register for courses. I know that there's jobs all across campus. We have a few filled positions in our office, so we work with some graduate assistants. I know a lot of offices across the U have grad assistants. There's also jobs in the library and in the food court and really all sorts of things. So you'll be able to find a lot of those opportunities on the job board once you're registered. As far as scholarships go, there are scholarships available for international students as well. Our scholarships are given by the department directly, and that's something that would be included in your offer letter of admission to the program. So both domestic and international students are automatically considered for the scholarships that we have. Yes, there's a question asking if we can send the links to the outside scholarships. Let me send you that quick. We actually have one website that has all of the different links on it. So I'll just send you this one website. And then this website includes all of the outside scholarship links that were on the presentation. Okay. There's a question asking to elaborate on the research assistant positions and graduate assistantships. So those positions are something that are given by the department directly as well. Not all of our programs offer assistantship positions. So that's definitely something that you'll want to discuss with your program directly. Some of our programs offer teaching assistant positions, some have research assistant positions. It really just depends year to year what they have available. So definitely reach out to your program directly about any assistantship positions that are available. For our students who aren't able to get an assistantship position, then they may look onto on-campus positions that are available. There is a question saying that that we do need financial documents to send an I-20 and some other documents to process the visa. That is correct. For our international students, we do require financial documentation of $82,448. That is just a federal government stipulation. It's not our rule, but the government does require that financial document before we can process an I-20 form. So a lot of our students will, send us bank statements that show funding. Some will send loan sanction forms to show that funding. So there are a few different options. I'll send a link to the ISSO website that has some more information about those financial documentation forms. This website will list a little bit more about what documents they accept for the financial documents. Let me try to find it here. Here it is. Okay, so this link will have more information on the required financial documents for us to create an I-20 form. There's a question asking if Peabody Hall is open by the beginning of the fall semester. I'm honestly not sure off the top of my head. I know that the housing office would know about that. The graduate dorms have been a little bit limited this past year, just because of the craziness of COVID. So hopefully it will be open. I think it will be limited, but it may be an option. So I would recommend reaching out to the housing office directly. I think that Candace sent a link to graduate housing already. I will just find that link and resend it, as this website has all of the information that we have about housing. There's a question asking about the payment deadline. Is September 16th the first deadline for payment in an entry year? Is there anything that has to be paging this summer? Nope. The September 16th date will be the payment deadline. So you won't have to pay anything before then. Just to make sure, it's always good to pay it before the actual deadline, just to make sure that the payment goes through and that everything is great, so that you don't have a late payment fee. But there's nothing that will have to be paid during this summer. I believe that once you actually register for your courses and you're enrolled, then you'll be able to look at your cost on your student link, and then that's when you'll be able to make a payment. There's a question asking how an international applicant can apply for a loan, and it will be available to process the visa application. I think I already went through most of that information. So if you do have further questions about it, let me know. I can send the link again as well. There is a question asking if international students can open a bank account in the US. Is it possible for us to help you regarding which steps to follow? I have never gotten this question before. I believe, yeah, I believe it should be possible. I'm not really sure. That's definitely something that you would, you know, kind of have to do on your own. I can try to find a link if our website has anything about that. Our ISSO might have some more information about it. Okay, here we go. Yep, our ISSO does have some more information about that on their website here that I just sent. Yeah, Candace on this call, she was also an international student during her studies. And so she might be able to speak a little bit more to that as well if you have some more questions about it. There's a question asking if it's possible to get medical insurance from outside. Yeah, yep. If you already have medical insurance, then you can waive the BU student health insurance. If you already, are enrolled in a different health insurance plan, then that's okay. You'll just have to go into the student link and waive our health insurance from your account. Yeah, there is a question talking about financial aid for part-time students. So it's basically the same as for full-time students. To be available for financial aid, you will have to be registered for at least 6 credits. If you're registered for less than 6 credits, then you will not be eligible for federal financial aid. If you are enrolled in 6 credits or more, then you are still eligible for loans. Your cost of attendance would obviously be lower because you wouldn't be paying as much in tuition, but the whole process will still be the same. So hopefully that helps to answer your question. There's a question asking for a 2-year course, do you need to show sufficient funds for 2 years up front or only for the first year for the I-20? You only need to show funds for the first year. So that amount is $82,448. Okay, yep, there is a question that they sent us an email about the I-20 process. Great, yes, yep, we're a little bit delayed. We're not able to respond to emails as quickly as we'd like right now, just because it's at the height of the admission season. And so we're just really busy. So I will take a look at your email as soon as I'm able to, and I will get back to you on that whole process. There is a question asking about the fee for graduate students. I'm assuming that's for our cost of attendance. So I will send the link that details our cost of attendance and what that amount is for this year. There's a question asking about the aggregate loan cap. Do they use the amount that you borrowed as an undergraduate or the sum of what you borrowed and the interest that you've accrued? That's a great question. They will only use the sum, so they won't include the interest on that number. That will only be the sum, like the initial amount that you borrowed for your loans. Okay. There is a longer question here. Give me a moment to read through it. Okay, yep. So if you are part-time during your last semester, then you will be paying by credit rather than the base full-time fee. So if you're only registered for 8 credits in your final semester, then you will be paying the part-time student fee, which is $1,830 per credit this academic year. So you won't have to pay the base full-time fee. You will just be paying the part-time fee. Yes, yep, that is the correct number. It will be $82,448 that our international students have to show. There's a question asking if you can ask for your SEVIS ID before the I-20 is sent to create your visa appointment. That is a good question. Our ISSO is actually emailing I-20s as soon as they're created to expedite the process. I don't know if they'll have your SEVIS ID before they send the I-20 to you. You may always email them at this email to ask for your SEVIS ID. But I believe that, they create the I-20 and then they have the SEVIS ID and then they just send it to you immediately via email. So I believe that you'll kind of just get it all at the same time. I don't know if they'll really have the SEVIS ID that much ahead of time to give you, as the process has been expedited through email. There is a question asking how much aid or when you will find out how much aid you're receiving. So any scholarship aid that you're receiving would be detailed in your offer letter of admission. All of our scholarships are given by the department directly. So that's something that would be included in your letter of admission that you received when you were accepted to the program. So that's how you find out about the scholarship aid that you're receiving. And then when it comes to loan aid, all of the domestic students are eligible to borrow up to their entire cost of attendance. So that's basically the amount that you are able to receive. So hopefully that answers your question. If you have more questions, then definitely let me know. There's a question asking, what is the approximate class strength for graduate classes? Do you mind adding more detail to that question? I'm not sure I understand the question. There's also a question asking for an update on the mode of learning for this fall. That's a great question. It does depend on the program that you are admitted to. So if you don't mind letting me know what program you're in, and I can give you an update. Okay, you are in the economic policy program. Yeah, so for all of our economics programs, if you are an international student and you are unable to come to the US because of visa processing delays, which we know are unfortunate right now, then you will be able to begin this program online for fall 2021 and then come to campus for spring 2022. So that is one of the programs that has been approved for online learning just for the fall semester if you're unable to make it to the US. All right, we do have just a few more minutes here, so feel free to ask any lingering questions that you guys have. I'll also change this slide to our contact information, so feel free to reach out to us at this email as well if you do have any more financial aid questions. Since the ISSO estimates are for 1 year, is there any changes in the estimates for the second year? So you won't have to go through that process again if you are a student here for a second year. I don't believe that you will need to submit financial documents again. That's just needed to create your I-20. But once you have your I-20, you won't have to go through that process again. But yes, in general, the numbers do change a little bit year to year. Okay, if you take 3 semesters to complete the program, then what would be the approximate expense? Let me see if I can quick calculate that. So basically you can calculate it using the costs on our website here. It's kind of hard because there's different ways, that you would be taking 3 semesters for the program. I'm not entirely sure on the top of my head how many credits are in this program either. So I believe that you'd be taking 2 full-time semesters. So that would be 2 semesters of the full-time tuition, which, just a very rough estimate is about $60,000 total. And then for your third and final semester, you would be paying per credit. And that depends on how many credits you're actually taking in your final semester. So I don't have that much time in the rest of the session to calculate that right now. And it depends on a few different factors for what your approximate expense would be. But chances are you will be completing the first 2 semesters full time, which would be around $60,000 ballpark number. And then for your final semester, then it depends on how many credits you're enrolled in, but you'd be paying per credit, which will be around $1,830 per credit. There's a question asking about work study. When can you expect to hear anything about it? We have not started yet reviewing the work study applications. Hopefully that's something that we will start reviewing once all of the admission decisions are sent out. So yeah, we will send you an email as soon as we have an answer for you, but hopefully it will be pretty soon. It will for sure be before the end of the summer. You'll know about the federal work study, and you'll hear back about your application before you're actually able to apply for one of the federal work study jobs. All right, and we will end the presentation there. So thank you everyone for joining, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. If you do think of any other questions throughout your financial aid process, then we are definitely here to help.